Now, meanwhile, the rest of the Gulf states are facing similar threats. So what will the next disastrous federal intervention be? Joining me now with analysis is the Republican nominee for the Senate for the great state of Florida. We have Marco Rubio's back with us. Marco, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Sean.
All right. I got to tell you something. I'm frustrated. And I feel really bad for the fishermen, those that own hotels, those that own property on the beaches, those that like to enjoy the beaches, the beautiful beaches of Florida, Pensacola, Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Panama City, because our government had an opportunity. They could have burned, they could have used skimmers, they could have used boom, they could have built barriers, the berms. They did none of this. What is going on here?
First of all, Northwest Florida and the Panhandle has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. It also has some of the best fishing in the world. And it's not just an economic engine, which is a very powerful economic engine that gives a lot of people employment. It's also a way of life. And to see some of the images today are heartbreaking as more and more oil is washing up on our beach. Look, BP is responsible for this spill, but the government is responsible for what's happened ever since in terms of the response. This is the most powerful country in the world. You would think that at this point every single skimmer on the planet would be working in the Gulf of Mexico. And as of late, we simply don't have enough. And I think that's just one problem, not to mention all the bureaucratic red tape that you're now outlining here. It's happening in Louisiana. It's happening in Florida.
Explain to me, maybe you figured this out, because I certainly have not figured it out. Explain to me, if you can. Here it is, 5 days now in the Gulf. It's up on our screen, 65 days. Explain to me, even at this late hour, we're still not responding. We still have not accepted the help of 13 nations that were offering skimmers and support to build the berms and the barriers. Why? Why would we not see?
There's no explanation to it. I mean, the only answer is they don't know what they're doing. The only answer is that this White House, this administration, and I hate to say this, I wish it wasn't true. I mean, I really wish they would have done a good job on this, because it could have prevented this from happening. When that oil was hundreds of miles from the coast, they could have jumped on it like the emergency that it was, and instead they've done a bunch of photo ops, they've walked on the beach, they've tough talk and all these kinds of things, but at the end of the day, as of today, more and more oil is washing up on the beach because the federal government has dealt with this in a way that's nothing less than incompetent. And I think it's unfortunate. We're paying a tremendous, tremendous price throughout the region and now in Florida.
You know, I got to be honest, and I know you're in the middle of a campaign, and I am shocked at Charlie Crist. I don't think in my life I've ever watched a single politician flip, flop, and flail like Charlie Crist. Apparently he's changed his position recently on abortion. He couldn't even admit that he supported the president in the stimulus plan. Wasn't he the same guy out there talking about drill baby drill himself when he thought he was going to be John McCain's running mate, or at least was in the running for that?
Well, clearly he's shifted his position on a host of issues because he wants to basically become the de facto Democratic nominee. He's not just abandoned the Republican Party in registration. His principles have all shifted, and so his position on public policy. But as regards to this oil spill, I think the real sad part about it is I don't think he's put the kind of pressure on this administration that Governor Jindal has, for example. I think there's political reasons behind it, but the truth is the federal government has failed.
We got a clip of Charlie Crist, and I want to run it for you, and then we'll get your reaction.
I think that the administration has gotten up to speed. I'm very pleased about that, and I got to tell you, I'm pleased, and we have encouraged that. I mean, you know, the idea of a $20 billion escrow, I think, is a very good start, and it's long overdue.
Now, there's been a lot of speculation that the Democratic Party is going to end up supporting the former Republican governor of the great state of Florida, Charlie Crist. Do you think he's courting their support?
I do, and I think that ultimately, you know, I'm the only candidate running in Florida that's going to stand up to this agenda and offer an alternative. The majority of Floridians believe this country's headed in the wrong direction, and they believe this administration and this Congress are taking us down a road that the majority of Floridians don't want to go. There's only one candidate running that's going to be a check and balance on that, and that's me. And I think as that becomes more and more apparent in this race as the months and weeks go on. And as far as the Obama administration being up to speed and doing a good job, I think the evidence is that that's not true. We just had a bunch of oil wash up on the beach today. This thing's getting worse. It's not getting better. The Obama administration has not caught up. They're well behind. They should have answered the call early on in this disaster. They haven't done so, and Florida's paying a tremendous price now.
Well, more pointedly to your opponent in this race, and that's Governor Crist. Do you think now he is seeking and courting the Democratic Party to get their support to run head-to-head against you?
Oh, absolutely, I do. I think that his hope is that he can become the de facto nominee of the Democratic Party. And, of course, that's a problem for my Democratic opponent in this race who will have to fight for that support. The way I see it is very simple, Sean. I'm running against two Democrats, one that admits it openly and one that doesn't. Right, but at the end of the day, I'm running against two supporters of the current agenda here in Washington, D.C., and I think the majority of Floridians don't want that.
But look, we all know it's now the infamous interview that Charlie Crist gave on Fox News Sunday, where he said he wasn't going to run as an independent. What does that tell you about Charlie Crist?
Well, I think his position on issues is on a poll-by-poll basis, and obviously there's too many people like that in politics already. The last thing we need is more people in Washington, D.C. that will say, be, or do anything to get elected. And that's why I'm running. This is a serious time in American history, and I'm the only one running that will stand up to what's happening in Washington and offer an alternative.
All right, Marco Rubio, thanks for being with us.